Hello friends, welcome. I'm glad you're here with me today. So welcome to another Monday mix-up. And today, instead of continuing on with my vacation pictures, which I will pick back up after this week, I wanted to do a fall card. So there were so many Halloween and fall cards that were being presented right now that I decided I just needed to do something in fall colors. So let's go ahead and change our camera view and see what I came up with for this week. All right, I'm just gonna slowly move my camera into focus. There we go. So here are my pumpkin cards that I came up with today, and I am calling this the Patchwork Pumpkin tutorial. And this is an idea that can be used with any kind of pumpkin stamp, die, or stencil. And the idea is basically to take your different pumpkin parts. Now you may have a die that die cuts it into parts, or if it's a stamp, you can go ahead and cut those pieces apart and add your different textures and your different patterns, whether you're doing it with pattern paper or with a pattern stamp, to create your patchwork look to your pumpkin. So I'm going to show you how I did this on my card. All right, I am going to quickly run through the products I used. I'm going to use this Brutus Monroe picked patch as my background. Excuse my glare. I think I left my overhead lights on, so there's a little bit of glare. And then I used for my pumpkin, I used this Honeywork patchwork pumpkin set. And so it kind of, rather than cutting your pumpkin into pieces, it cuts it into layers. So I will show you how that all works. Then I also used this pumpkin die to make a third card, just to show you that you don't have to have a layered pumpkin in order to use this idea. Any pumpkin can work for this. And for my sentiments, I used the honeybee buzzwords, the mini buzzwords for fall. And I also brought in one of the Catherine Pooler ones. That's where I got the You're the Best in the Patch. That's the name of the stamp set as well. All right, so to begin, I'm just starting with an A2 size white background, and I'm going to go ahead and create my stenciled background. And you know what? I just realized I forgot to get my inks out. So hold on one quick second. I keep my oxide inks back here behind me. I just had to grab this box. And today I'm going to be using the fossilized amber, the spiced marmalade, and let's see, I think I went with the candied apple. Today we'll use candied apple. There we go. All right. So I think I'll use the blending brushes today. I do have the tops here where I use my old handled, but I think for today I'm going to go ahead and use my blending brushes that are here. And I am going to start with, let's start with the fossilized amber and work our way up. There we go. And I'm just going to start off, and you've probably seen many videos of people blending. So have you started making any fall cards? This is my first one for this year, and I love fall cards. Now I want most of my background to be the orange color, so I'm just going to go just a little bit of the way down here with this fossilized amber. this is just going to create our background for us. All right, now we're going to move into the spiced marmalade. And this for this color, I have a much bigger brush. My yellow brush is a smaller one, so it doesn't go quite as fast. But I'm going to go ahead and come in from the side, and I'm going to make sure I mix that with the fossilized amber color. Just going to bring that down. My blending brushes here are fairly new, so I don't have a lot of ink built up on them yet. So I'm having to go back and add ink quite a bit. When you're blending backgrounds, do you ever feel like you're getting an arm workout? That's why I pretty much only blend with oxides, because when you use dye inks, I feel like I need to put ice on my arms. I'm like a wimp. So I'm going to come in with my yellow one just a little bit to kind of blend that out. All right, and then for my last, I'm going to come in with my candied apple. Like I said, I think I've only used these brushes maybe one or two other times, so this red I'm really having to build up on here. Bringing that up into my orange a little bit. All right, now I could probably get this much smoother if I continued to work with it, but for the purposes of our video, it's not going to affect the overall card because we're going to stamp over this and do some embossing. So I'm going to be happy with where I am now, even though I realize I've got some, I could add another layer of ink and smooth this out a lot smoother, but I don't want to take the time to do that here in our video. So once you get your background inked, I'm going to pull out my Brutus Monroe background and create a pumpkin patch background. Now, you could use any fall background that you wanted to. If you had leaves or, let's see here, just really any fall. My mind is not coming up with them. But I am going to go ahead and quickly add a little bit of powder here on this because I don't want to have a mess with my embossing powder. I have another one over here. I think I'm going to use this one. It'll do a better job. There we go. All right. And so I'm just adding the anti-static powder tool on there in order to keep my embossing powder from sticking all over. I'm going to use the Versamark to ink up my stamp here. Going to take my background and gently lay it right on my Right, now I'm going to take a separate piece so that I can kind of rub over and make sure that I'm getting good coverage. And I just use a scrap piece of paper to do this. Oops. This is what I use for my embossing tray. Go ahead and get that ready. There we go. Now I'm just going to pick this up and add my embossing to it, and hopefully we get a good, yeah, it looks like it's doing very well. Now since I used that, you see how how smooth my inking was does not matter a whole lot on this. Because you're stamping over it, having those kind of color variations, it kind of looks nice on the pumpkins there. So that is okay. I'll go ahead and clean the glue off my stamp. So one thing I wanted to tell you while I was doing this, when I have a instead of a red rubber stamp, I have a photopolymer stamp like this. I don't like to remove them from their plastic backing, because when you do that, all of a sudden the backing just like curls up like you would not believe. So rather than take it off the plastic backing, I just always leave it on the plastic backing and put my paper to the stamp rather than the other way around. So that's how I like to use my large photopolymer clear stamps when I'm doing a background stamp. All right, I'll just go ahead and we'll heat emboss this real quickly. So one thing I noticed in most of my samples, I put the red towards the bottom, but I wasn't really paying attention to that when I laid my card base down. So I've got the yellow on the bottom working my way up to red. But I think I kind of like it that way, because the tops of the pumpkins here, these would be the ones that are more in the front, and because these are kind of the bottoms of the pumpkin, they would be the ones that are towards the back. So it actually kind of makes sense that those would be in more shadow than the ones in the front. So I actually like it better that way. Happy accident. All right, I think I'm ready to do some, oh yeah. I have to tell you, whenever I'm videoing, I feel like I have to go a little faster. And so I do things like warping my paper and holding my gun too close, things like that. It's probably not the best way to show people the correct way to do it, but for some reason I always feel slightly rushed when I'm doing it on video. It's just like a mindset, you know. Yeah, I am liking how this is looking. We got a very clean stamp. Yes, using the powder tool makes all the difference when you're doing a background, and especially since we had just now inked it, it was especially important to use the powder tool. If I hadn't, that embossing powder definitely would have stuck to that slightly wet ink. So I'm really happy with our background. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. We are ready to make our pumpkin. All right, so on the this honeybee pumpkin that I'm using, the way you make your pumpkin is you use these 3 large dies to cut out your bottom, your middle, and your top. Now, if I was using this one, I would just die cut it in all the different papers that I wanted to use, and then pull out the papers that fit each of the sections that I wanted to use. Now, if it was a stencil, I would stencil the pumpkin, and then whether I'm using stamps, and I would have to mask off the different areas in order to stamp the pattern or texture into each pumpkin part that I wanted. So there's lots of different ways that you can achieve a same type look to get a patchwork pumpkins, but this is the way I'm using it today. So this particular pumpkin comes with this set where all the different patterns for your different pieces, you've got lots of choices. And I am going to show you how the easiest way to do this. So I have saved the outlines of where I die cut my pumpkin pieces, and I am going to use my Misty tool. One second, I'll get it in the camera for you. And I'm going to do these two first, but if I use my Misty tool and hold this down, this is going to help me line up my stamps so that I get them stamped clearly. Alright, so I'm going to use this pretty flower piece right here. Let me get my glasses on. I'll try not to get my head in here, but because you can kind of feel it when it's in there. There we go. And now for this, I only needed to do the two outer pieces. And I think, I'm going to use this polka dot one on one side. And I'm going to use, let's see. There's so many choices, it's so fun. Oh, here it is. I like this one that kind of looks like a jester. I can't remember what that's called. There's a name for that look, but I'm going to use that one. It's fun. Okay, so now that I have them in here, I'm going to go down, pick up my pieces, and now I'm going to add back in my actual pieces. There we go. You know what? I think that's upside down. Yeah. Okay, now I want this one to be orange, but I want these two to be black. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my archival inks because I have them right here. For some reason, before I started videoing, I did not grab my inks. So my Catherine Pooler inks that I used originally are back behind me. So I'm just going to go ahead with these. And I'm going to use the Bright Tangelo to do the one on this side. Yeah, there's just one spot there that doesn't want to get done. There we go. Okay. All right, so there's my centerpiece. I can go ahead and take that one out. Clean that off. Whenever you're using archival inks, it's definitely best to clean right away because it is going to stain that a little bit. Which is one of the reasons I really enjoy using my Catherine Pooler ones. They don't stain quite as badly as some of the other dye inks. Okay, now for the black, I want to get a nice crisp dark stamp. So I'm going to use my VersaFine Clair. Ink these up real well. And hopefully we get a good dark stamp the first time. So a friend of mine made this little knob thing, and I know that lots of the companies sell them, but this one is so comfortable in my hand that I'm actually going to use it. So my friend Mary gave me that. Isn't that nice? All right. I said, hopefully it's good and clear the first time because it did pick it up and looks pretty good. So when we layer our other piece on top, I think that's going to be good for us. Okay. So we're going to do that one more time with the black one, but on this one, we're going to go back to the embossing. So okay. So the same as the white piece, I have this one. Before I do that, we're going to pick our pieces. I'm going to pick some that have some really solid lines so that I get some really nice gold texture on my pumpkin. Maybe it goes on. These should be the same on both sides, but sometimes they fit a little better on one side than the other. Okay, and let's see. I think I'll use this zigzag line. I like this one. Okay, so pick that up. Now, just like before, I'm going to add a little bit of the powder here so that hopefully that keeps my embossing powder in line. Move this out of the way. Pull my embossing tray back out. And again, I'm going to stamp these with the Versamark. So I was actually gone for a whole week. I didn't make any videos for a week. My family, we traveled to Indiana to what we call the tractor show. I'll share some photographs and some card ideas from that experience in a few weeks. But when we got back from the tractor show, some of us, we just didn't feel real well. We had a bit of a stomach bug. And so I just was not in my craft room for a few days. And so rather than stress out about it, I decided to just go ahead and take that week to myself and wait till I felt better. So there we go. All right, it might have shifted just a little bit, but it'll still make a pretty pumpkin. So let's go ahead and heat emboss this one. I like to keep some paper clips handy right here where I can pull those out to heat emboss. Hopefully it's still hot from where I embossed before. Oh yeah. I love these big bold stripes in the gold. I think that's really pretty. There we go. You can see here on this one edge, my paper, I believe it moved. It shifted just a little bit when I opened my Misty door. But we're going to have an easy way to fix that. When we're all done with our pumpkin, we can position our flower there, or I can just take my scissors and trim that off a bit. And I think that that is just what I'll do because it's not going to matter. Pumpkins come in all kinds of shapes. It does not have to be uniform on that side. But that would bother me if I left it. So there we go. No problem. You may have heard me say this before. No problems, just solutions, right? So it's a good motto to live by. So now we're just going to layer up our pumpkin. And I think it's really fun to go ahead and put some foam tape. So depending on what kind of pumpkin you're using to make your patchwork pumpkin, you may have this option of using foam tape behind the different layers. Now let's say this was just a stamp and you stamped it and it was this big pumpkin with different sections. You could stamp it once and use the whole thing. Stamp it a second time, but cut with your scissors the outer two edges. then stamp it a third time and cut the next 2 edges. Then you would have this shape where you could layer it up like I'm doing. Or if you wanted just a 1-layer pumpkin, you could just stamp it that first time, mask off the different sections, and add your patchwork. So lots of different ways to achieve a patchwork look on your pumpkin. Okay. I'm not using a really thick foam. I'm just using 1 layer of this 3M foam just to give it a little bit of lift. All right. I like it. Isn't that fun? Just a pretty pumpkin. All right. Now, in my first one that I made, you can see here, I came back with some of my stickles, my silver stickles, and just added some stickles on each of these. If I do that, I will wait and do it after I've added it to my card. So we're ready to glue on his little stem. Oops. There we go. All right, so I have stamped and die cut 2. I actually did probably like 6, but when the Heartfelt Creation Sunflower stamps for the smallest one, it stamps 2 at the same time, which is what you're going to need to build your flower. So I stamped those in the Archival Ink Goldenrod. Then I used the Goldenrod ink with a dauber and just colored the centers. And I also put a light coloring around the petals. But you can see they're just lightly yellow. But now now that I've die cut it, I'm gonna come back with my goldenrod, and on the tips of each petal, I'm going to add, whoops, a nice heavy dose of goldenrod out there on the tips. Now by doing this, it helps you create the illusion of light on your flower. So it just helps create that dimensionality that you're going for after you shape your flowers. So there we go. So that looks like a very simple thing, very, very meaningful to the end product. If you skip that step, your flowers will have a little bit of a flat look. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and mold these by hand. They do come with a shaping mold, and if you were gonna make a lot of flowers, the shaping mold is a wonderful thing to add. But for today, since I'm just making a couple flowers, I will shape these by hand. Now I am using a Heartfelt Creation stylus, and this comes in the deluxe flower shaping kit that they have. But to do this, if you have a stylus of any other company and a foam, just a piece of foam, that will work to do this. If you don't have one of those things and you want to make flowers, Heartfelt Creation does sell the flower shaping kits. So I'm just going to use the stylus to put some curl and all on the back side of each petal. You see how that did? It just added some curl just by pressing there in the center. Now I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to make a circle right in the middle of the flower. Now you see how that did? Now we have this beautiful flower shape. So I'm going to do the exact same thing to this one. Just going to press a little circle on each petal. So it kind of looks like a claw right now, okay? And then I'm going to turn it over and just press in the center. And that is all there is to it. It is very easy. So now that I have it this far, I'm going to take a little bit of glue, add a little drop of glue on one, and I'm going to layer them up, and I'm going to offset the petals. And I like to just use my same tool to kind of hold that. Just like that. right, now there are lots of different products that you can use to make your flower centers. You could use a gem of some kind. You could use stickles. They sell little jars of this that are little bitty pebbles. They're called prills, and you can use these in the center. But today I'm going to be using this. It's a bag of glitter, and it's called Gala Glitz Brown Glitter, and that is what I'm going to use to fill the centers of my sunflowers, and I will show you the way that I do this. So, I need to grab one of my little spoons. So I've got a little spoon here. I'm going to take my dry as clear glue, and I'm just going to put a circle of glue right in the center of that sunflower. So it's a pretty healthy, but whatever shape you want your center to be, that's how you need to put the glue. Now I'm just going to take my little spoon, fill it in, tap just a little, give it a little second there to adhere, and then dump it out. And now I have my beautiful sunflower, and I'm just going to set that aside and let that dry while I finish up my card. And it'll be ready to go on my card in a few moments. Okay, now for my, whoops, my hair's in my face. Now for my greenery, I pulled this piece from one of the Heartfelt stamp sets. There are other choices in our, you know, you can pretty much, like there's some leaves and stuff in my stamp set, but I didn't really like the way they looked so much. Like on this one, I don't know, they're not my favorite leaves with these flowers. So I went and found some others. So that's something you can do. If you don't like the way one looks, go through your sets and find one that you do like. All right, so here we go. We've got our background. I'm going to trim this 1/4 inch so that I can give it a nice, pretty gold edge. Whoops, there we go. Went ahead and did an 1/18 of an inch on either. 1/18, 1/8. I don't know why I always say that. 1/8 of an inch. My husband teases me. He says, just forget that hash mark in there. All right. That way I can just keep my balance there of my pumpkins, because when I placed it in the middle on purpose. I kind of wanted it like that. So, okay. Now I have a piece of Luxe Gold, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this to an A2 size. That is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So it would be fun to use like a die or something that gives you a nice stitched edge. I didn't do that today, but that's certainly a fun idea. And look what I did. That's not going to be long enough. Okay. Yes, this is long enough. Okay. 5 1/2. 4 1/4. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and put our card together. Now when I did my background, when I made my embossing, I laid my card on it this way. You can see on some of these, I laid it the other direction so that I had a landscape card rather than the up and down. So that's something you can manipulate and choose which way you want yours to go on whatever background that you choose. Okay, but I wanted to have room. Instead of using the You're the Best in the Patch, I wanted to use one of these, so I wanted that room up there. So that's why I went this way this time. And there we go. And let's see, I have a couple flowers ready to go and my greenery. So before we glue it all down, let's decide what we want our sentiment to be on this card. Whoops. All right. These are the dies that go with the fall. Here, I'll keep that under it, the fall. And I was thinking I would use the Hey There pumpkin. So we are going to die cut the pumpkin, and then I will stamp and emboss the Hey There. There we go. Okay, now sometimes, because they're written backwards, I sometimes have a hard time picking the one I want, but I'm pretty sure that it's this one right here. Okay, and yes, that's the one. Okay. To get them to all fit on the page, they don't necessarily put the word next to its outline, and so you have to kind of look around for it. All right, I have a couple patterned papers here, and I think I'm going to do the word pumpkin out of the yellow this time, and then do the outline in the brown. I don't pre-plan this kind of thing. I just make a decision as I'm doing it and decide. So we'll see whether this turns out the way we like it. For me, part of the fun in crafting is just making those kind of design decisions and seeing what works and having fun with it. I never ever allow myself to stress over crafting. Even when I have videos that I want to get done or work for company, I always remember that my projects turn out much better if I'm having fun while I do it. So, and with any kind of creative endeavor, sometimes I like how they turn out better than others, but that's part of the learning. All right, I'll just have to die cut that over here. Whoa. Pull out my word pumpkin. There we go. Yeah, there is a little dot in the eye that stayed inside. I'm going to leave it right in there until I'm ready for it. So I don't know if anybody else has this that happened at their house. I'm going to share a little something with you. My husband controls the air conditioning in this house from his phone, which has its perks sometimes. If you're out and about and you know you're going to be working upstairs when you get home, he can go ahead and do that from his phone. So sometimes it is nice. But other times, he won't know that I'm upstairs in my craft room working. And he will turn the air conditioner up to like 80 degrees. And I'll be in here working, and all of a sudden, it gets like incredibly hot in my craft room. And that's what's happening right now. I'm pretty sure he has adjusted the heat in the craft room. So that's just something I have happen from time to time. I'll be working along, and I'm like, boy, why is it so hot in here? And I go out and look, and the air conditioner will be set on 80. Like, you're killing me, Smalls. So when my video is over, I will be going out in the hall and adjusting the temperature back to a comfortable setting. Which I understand why, because if nobody's up here, there's no reason to have it, running at that rate. And I raised 3 children, and so the upstairs, there was a time when people were up here all the time, but the air conditioner downstairs and upstairs runs separately. So, now that my kids are all grown and out of the house, there's really no need to have it on up here all the time. but if I'm up here crafting, I definitely need it on. Okay, so I like to use my pen from my glue to pick up little bits, and I just tap it in the glue and then tap it on the little dot of the eye, and there we go. I can just set it right down, and that's how I go about it. Now you can use your jewel pickers and things like that, but sometimes I'm on, I do things the fast, easy way, so I just use my pen from my glue, and it makes a great little, to place little pieces like that. Okay, there. Oh, I like it with the brown, with the yellow on the inside. I think that looks good for our little hey there pumpkin. Now I am going to add my flowers. Let's see, I want to pop those up a little more. That one looks a little flat. I think I'll use this one. And then I'm just going to break off a little bit of this and tuck that down underneath. Maybe just a little bit more on the other side. Go, and let's see, do we want another one? We'll decide in a second. All right, now I'm going to make the hey there, which is in our stamp pad. I really like that red on the top. It was a happy accident. It makes my yellow word stand out more too. I think if it was on the yellow, it would get lost a little bit. So I'm kind of glad that that worked out that way. Okay, now I had a pile. This is a pile of like sentiment strips that I have a die that cuts those out. Like this is from Stamps of Life. And I almost always just have a big old pile of sentiment strips. So let's pick one that will work with this. Yes, I like that. Now, I think what I want to do, I'm going to grab this piece of scratch paper and my Distress Oxide again. See, I've got this little brush, and I am going to go ahead and color this. Rather than having it just be white, I want that to be yellow. So I'm just going to color my strip up. And then I'm definitely going to need to use the powder tool again. Okay. I have several different powder tools right here on my desk. I have this Tailored Expression one that is so great to do like large areas and things. Well, just it's a great tool, but I didn't want to get my inks all over it, so I didn't want to rub it back and forth and stain the top. And so I also have this little cup over here that's got the bag, and that's another fast way that I can just do that. So, all right, you know what? I didn't even check. Yeah, it fits. And I want to, I'm debating, I don't think I want to, I think I'm just going to do the black ink. I was debating whether I wanted to heat emboss it or not, and I probably didn't need to use it because I think I'll just use black ink. Since I have the black down here, I think the black ink will look best. The gold might be kind of hard to read, so I'm just going to do that. And forgive me, I'm going to have to put my head up over this to make sure I get that in there. Okay. I like it. Just blowing on that so I don't smear it. I'm going to go ahead and grab my small scissors, and I like to hold my finger behind it and get that straight and then just snip that off. There we go. I think we're all ready to glue this down. Okay. And I did pop up my I think I'm going to go ahead and pop these up. There it is. So has anybody started making Halloween and fall cards yet? Or is this kind of early for you? Are you working on Christmas already? I don't send a lot of like Halloween cards. I love making them because I love the colors and the little images. I like the themes of Halloween are fun, but I don't really have a lot of people to send them to. So um, my grandchildren are still very young. Although I think Hazel might enjoy getting a pumpkin card. She is almost 2, my granddaughter. And her little sister is still a baby, so we'll see. There we go. Go ahead and glue my pumpkin down. So one of the things I really liked about the idea of this patchwork pumpkin is just the possibilities. I mean, I have so many background dies and so much patterned paper, and just, you know, you could just really be creative with coming up with all kinds of ways of making this. Whoops. So now a lot of times I get out my hot glue gun to put flowers on, but since it's just this one, I'm gonna go ahead and hold it. There we go. The only bad part about putting all these tiny pieces on the back is pulling off all these little papers. They really come off just fine. It's that the 3M, I find the foam pulls up as well. So, all right, can I get that centered in there? Does that look good and straight? I think so. And now this hey there, I'm just gonna glue that one down right above. And I'm gonna fit it right in there above the word pumpkin. All right. I think this might be one of my favorite ones. Now, on some of them, I went ahead and pulled out some gems and put on. I am going to come back with the stickles and add the stickles to my pumpkin, but other than that, I would say our patchwork pumpkin is complete. I am liking how this one turned out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera around. All right, thank you so much for joining me today to make this fall card. I hope that you go through your stash at home and find a pumpkin and figure out a way that you can make a patchwork to make a fun fall card for your loved ones. So, all right, I hope you have a lovely day and continue to craft for the fun of it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.